Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, host of the Football History Dude podcast, right here on the Sports History Network. Now, before we jump into another sports history adventure, let me tell you about this episode's sponsor. We partnered with Rochester Sports Autographs, the largest JSA authenticated autograph distributor in the United States, where you can get deals on over 30,000 autographed sports collectibles. They even have film, music, and other entertainment autographs on the site, so there's something for everyone. Perhaps you're looking for a gift for Mother's Day, or maybe Father's Day. Heck, who needs a holiday as an excuse to give a piece of sports history to your loved ones? Or how about yourself? Today seems like a great day to add to your sports cave, right? But how is RSA able to offer such great deals on JSA authentication, you ask? Well, they do this by making deals directly with athletes, so there are no extra markups, and they choose to pass these savings on to the customer. All orders from Rochester Sports Autographs are top quality and shipped to your door with top authentication and money-back guarantee. And to make sure RSA knows that the Sports History Network sent you, we created a special link for you. All you have to do is head to shoprsa.com/SHN. Again, that's shoprsa.com/SHN. Head over there to get your piece of sports history today. This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Yesterday's Sports on the Sports History Network. Today, in part 2 of the best NFL teams of the 1970s, we're going to discuss the number 6 team. Last week we discussed the number 7 team, which was the Washington Redskins. Today, we're going to discuss the Los Angeles Rams. The 1970 Rams were 8-3-1 going into Week 13, but they needed to win their last 2 games to make the playoffs. A 28-23 loss to the Lions in the next to last game of the season did them in, as they finished the season at 9-4-1 and missed the playoffs. Offensive tackle Charlie Cohen, defensive end Deacon Jones, and defensive tackle Merlin Olsen made the Pro Bowl. Olsen also made All-Pro. After coaching the Rams for 5 seasons and compiling an impressive 49-17-4 regular season record, George Allen was dismissed and replaced by Tommy Prothro. The change of coaches didn't pay off, as the Rams finished the 1971 season with 8 wins, 5 losses, and 1 tie. Running back Willie Ellison, rookie linebacker Isaiah Robertson, and Merlin Olsen made the Pro Bowl. Robertson also was voted Rookie of the Year. Things only got worse in 1972, as the team finished with 6 wins, 7 losses, and 1 tie. Their first losing season since 1965. And Coach Prothro was sent packing. Merlin Olsen, defensive end Coy Bacon, and punter Dave Chappell made the Pro Bowl. Chuck Knox was hired to coach the 1973 Rams. The team gained almost 3,000 yards rushing on the season, and the media began referring to them as Round Chuck. The Rams finished the season with 12 wins and only 2 losses, their best record in team history. They traveled to Dallas to face the 10-4 Cowboys in the playoffs. LA had defeated Dallas earlier in the season, 37-31, but they scored only 16 points this time, and the Cowboys scored 27. Just like that, an outstanding season was over. New quarterback John Hadle made the Pro Bowl, along with receiver Harold Jackson, running back Lawrence McCutcheon, fullback Jim Burleson, defensive end Jack Youngblood, defensive tackle Merlin Olsen, and linebacker Isaiah Robertson. Hadel, Jackson, and Robertson also made All-Pro. Chuck Knox was voted Coach of the Year. After 5 weeks of the 1974 season, Rams had 3 wins and 2 losses. Quarterback John Hadel got most of the blame pointed at him, and the Rams traded him to the Packers. Hadel was replaced by James Harris, and the team won 7 of their next 9 games to finish the season 10-4. Their playoff game would be at home against the Redskins, whom they had just lost to 13 days earlier. The result was different this time, as the Rams came away with their first postseason victory since 1951. Next up was a trip to Minnesota and a chance to play in the Super Bowl. But the Vikings won 14-10, and the season was over. James Harris, Lawrence McCutcheon, Tom Mack, Isaiah Robertson, Merlin Olsen, and Jack Youngblood made the Pro Bowl. Youngblood also made All-Pro. 1975 was another great season for the Rams, as they went 12-2 and allowed just 32 points in their last 6 games. Then they easily defeated the Cardinals in the playoffs. LA was heavily favored to defeat the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game, even though Dallas had beaten them fairly easily in Week 1, 18-7. The Rams played their worst game of the season and were never in the game. Final score, Dallas 37, LA 7. Lawrence McCutcheon, Harold Jackson, Tom Mack, Fred Dreyer, Jack Reynolds, Isaiah Robertson, Merlin Olsen, and Jack Youngblood made the Pro Bowl. Youngblood also made All-Pro again and was voted Defensive Player of the Year. The 1976 Rams finished the season at 10-3-1 and had one of their best games in team history and a Week 13 win over the Atlanta Falcons, winning 59-0. They traveled to Dallas for the playoffs and defeated the Cowboys 14-12. They would travel to Minnesota to face the Vikings in the NFC Championship, and they lost their chance to play in the Super Bowl for the 3rd year in a row. Final score, Vikings 24, Rams 13. A big part of the problem with this 1976 team is that they couldn't seem to decide on a quarterback. Ron Jaworski started 2 games, James Harris started 5 games, and Pat Hayden started 9 games. Lawrence McCutcheon, receiver Ron Jesse, defensive tackle Larry Brooks, center Rich Saul, defensive back Monty Jackson, linebacker Isaiah Robertson, and Jack Youngblood made the Pro Bowl. Robertson, Youngblood, and Monty Jackson also made All-Pro. To add to the quarterback controversy in 1977, James Harris and Ron Jaworski were traded, and an aging Joe Namath was brought in to save the day. After starting 4 games, it was obvious Namath didn't have it anymore, and Pat Hayden took over. Despite the quarterback issue, it was another great regular season for the Rams, as they won 10 and lost 4. But they lost the playoff game to the Vikings on a rain-soaked LA Memorial Coliseum field. This was the 4th time LA played Minnesota in the postseason, and the 4th time they lost. The loss would cost Chuck Knox his job. Pat Hayden, Lawrence McCutcheon, Harold Jackson, Isaiah Robertson, Jack Youngblood, Larry Brooks, and Rich Saul made the Pro Bowl. The 1978 season started with a new head coach, Ray Malvasi. After 7 weeks of play, the Rams had yet to lose a game. They won 5 of their next 9 to finish the regular season 12-4. There wasn't a quarterback controversy for once, as Pat Hayden started all 16 games. The Rams finally beat the Vikings in the playoffs, 34-10. For the 4th time in the last 5 years, the Rams were 1 game away from a trip to the Super Bowl. But they lost again, this time to Dallas, 28-0. Kicker Frank Corral, Jack Youngblood, Larry Brooks, defensive tackle Cody Jones, and defensive backs Rod Perry and Pat Thomas made the Pro Bowl. Youngblood made All-Pro again. The Rams received much more devastating news 3 months after their devastating loss to the Cowboys. Team owner Carol Rosenblum died in what was ruled an accidental drowning. A Week 11 loss to the Bears gave the Rams a 5-6 record, and the playoffs seemed out of reach. Backup Vince Ferragamo took over at quarterback, and the Rams won 4 of their next 5 games. Playing in a weak division made their 9-7 record good enough for first place. They traveled to Dallas to meet the Cowboys in the playoffs. The 2 teams had met in Week 7, and the Cowboys won 30-6. Dallas was heavily favored to beat LA in the playoff game, but the Rams pulled off a big upset, winning 21-19. The Rams would defeat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC Championship game 9-0. How ironic that after all the great seasons the Rams had, they would finally reach the Super Bowl in a season where they finished the regular season only 1 game over 500. The Rams played well in the Super Bowl, but lost to the Steelers 31-19. Only Jack Youngblood and Larry Brooks made the Pro Bowl, but they also made All-Pro. So here's the bottom line. The regular season record for the Rams during the 1970s was 99 wins, 42 losses, and 3 ties. Their postseason record, 6 wins, 7 losses. They had 7 division titles. They had 1 NFC title, but they did not win any Super Bowls. Okay, join me again next week when we will go to the number 5 team of the 1970s NFL football. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. God bless.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.